Welcome to another episode of the Fireproof Career. I am your host, Subira Jones, aka the Corporate Hippie, and this is a podcast for the corporate professional, the entrepreneur who wants to fireproof their career from burnout. So ultimately, we can live the lives that we want and create the careers that we love. And today, I'm really excited for this conversation. So let me set the scene. I first came across Jo Wong on TikTok. She does content on career and lifestyle. It's aspirational, it's relatable, it's funny, she's so chic. And so I naturally followed. A few weeks later, I went to a separate event in London and Jo was one of the speakers. And then I heard her incredible story of her career progression. I was like, right, we need to talk to Jo. Everyone needs to hear from her story, her journey, her wisdom. But let me tell you who Jo is before we get into this. So Jo is a senior private client manager at FARFETCH, right? She also does career and lifestyle content, like I mentioned, with an incredible presence online. And she has a history of working in the beauty, fashion, and luxury industry. She manages multi-level teams, hybrid teams, 150 plus people. She's an incredible person. She's also originally from America, so she moved to London in October 2019. And I'm going to let Jo speak for herself, but just hearing her journey, I was like, right, everyone can learn from this. Whether you're a corporate professional or an entrepreneur, there are nuggets and wisdoms to take away, because part of fireproofing your career is being entrepreneurial in your approach. As I said, regardless of whether you're a corporate professional or an entrepreneur, we have to retake ownership of our careers in order to fireproof them. So without further ado, let's welcome Jo.
Hello.
Hi, Jo. Thanks for joining
Hi.
us today.
Thank you for having me. I wish I could walk out on the stage like when you're on a regular show. I love it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. As I said, when I heard your story about I'm going to let you tell it yourself, but when I heard your career progression, how you went from working in an accountant in Miami to now being the senior private client manager at FARFETCH in London, there's so much we can learn from this. So give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to mute the AirPods because I want to make sure that we are crystal clear today.
I can't hear you yet.
How about now?
Beautiful. Yes.
The joys of tech, we're back in the room. Thank you.
Yes.
So Jo, as I said, you've got an incredible career, but I like to ask people who they are outside of work. I think far too often we conflate who we are with what we do, and then our self-worth, our self-esteem gets tied up in what we do. And
Absolutely.
the important is who we are. So Jo, without telling us what you do, who are you?
Oh, I love this question. I can't tell you what I do. I am a Caribbean American millennial young woman. I was born in Trinidad. I grew up in both Canada and the US. I have lived in multiple cities. I was counting the other day how many addresses I've had. My mom can't keep up. I am a lover of all things arts. I'm a huge passion in storytelling. I love discovering new places. I've traveled to almost 50 countries. So yeah, I am a little bit of an enigma. I'm in many different things, very multifaceted. And something that a lot of people don't know about me. And anytime I play two truths and a lie, this is always one of them. I actually dropped out of uni to be a backup dancer. And
No way.
I had massive aspirations of moving to Hollywood and dancing backup. I've auditioned for A. Marie, Beyonce, 3LW. For Beyonce, they said I was too short. But yeah, I wanted to be a performer. I've always loved performing and facilitating and that kind of grandiose, presence. But yeah, that's who I am.
I love that. How dare they say you're too short?
I know. I'm 5 feet. They weren't having it. I was like, okay. Yeah.
I'm curious to know. So you explored, do you know what I'm liking is that you explore life. You're truly showing up and you're living life is what I'm hearing. As long as you're sending your mum the forwarding address,
Exactly.
You have to keep up with their number, right?
Right, exactly.
But I do love the fact that you explored your dreams, your aspirations of being a backup dancer. I'm curious, did you go back to uni after the fact or did you decide to do something entirely different?
Yeah, I was taking a break, and I'm sure my family was like, "What is she doing?" And then I actually went to school for skincare. So I went to school and I was a licensed esthetician, and I was living actually in Tampa, Florida. And
Wow.
then when I finished my kind of course and studies as an esthetician, I was actually approached by a very famous spa in Miami called the Don Shula Spa. And for those who are from Miami or know anything about football, Don Shula was a very famous football coach, and he had a spa. I was like 19, and they moved me from Tampa to Miami to open the spa and be head of
Oh, wow.
skincare. I know when I tell the story, it's like 20 years ago. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I did that, but it was fantastic. And that's what moved me to Miami. And that started my love for beauty and skincare and makeup. So I kind of shifted gears. I was going to school, I was studying dance, I was studying, I think, Latin American Caribbean studies, just trying to find something. At that age, you're like, what do I do? What do I study? So I was still trying to understand what it is I was passionate about and wanted to do. So that kind of took me there. But yeah, I got back into school, but more from a sense of skincare.
I love that. It's such a
Mhm.
contrast to mine. I was so inhibited. I didn't know what like passions were per se. I knew like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some things I was kind of okay at, good at, languages in particular, but I didn't know it was a passion per se. So my thing of figuring it out was just go with what is expected of me. So I studied economics from
Okay.
like 12 years old because academically I'm a nerd about economics, but I wouldn't say
Okay.
passion per se.
Mm,
So I love the fact when I can hear other people's stories and how they really explored everything to the fullest. And I think
yeah.
it's so important. And recently I heard uh, another Knowles, Matthew Knowles. I
Mm.
went to a luncheon that he was a keynote speaker at,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
it was really, really surreal. And someone had asked him, "How did you know that Beyonce and Solange were going to do what they do?" And
Hmm.
his thing was he just let them explore their passions.
Absolutely.
He just
Yeah.
encouraged them to explore their passions, and he
Yeah.
never once had to, corral them into going to rehearsals or practice. In fact, it was them dragging him out the door to make sure they got
I
there in
love
time kind
that.
of thing. So
I
I
love that.
right? And
Yeah.
you've done that. So yeah, such a stark contrast to I'm just trying to figure it out to
I still feel that way every now and then. So you think you have it figured out, and then you're like, do I like this? Is this what I want to do? But that's the beauty. You could pivot and you can change and you could take. I think I'm an amalgamation of all the different random jobs I've had, random passions I've had, interests, all kind of they all come together in the end, and you end up using them in some capacity.
I think that's so true because even though I didn't become an economist by profession, I definitely know that
Mhm.
my academics in economics definitely
Yeah,
helped shaped my showing up as the corporate hippie
exactly.
and the people I work with. So I definitely believe that. But I'd like to go back because I remember when I heard you speaking in St. Ames, you were talking about going from the Mac counter to
Yeah.
working in operation at Estee Lauder. Take us through that journey. What was that progression? That is so insanely incredible. How does one
Yeah.
navigate?
I think what was a blessing in disguise was the 2011, I think, recession in the United States or all over globally.
Mm,
But essentially, I was going to school part time. I was going back to school, and I was like, oh, let me go back and get my degree. And I was working as a makeup artist at MAC. And I've always had a passion for makeup, and I loved what MAC stood for. I loved that it was like all races, all genders, all, ages. And I was passionate about the company. I was working there part time, I was working there full time. And then I just started to kind of gain more knowledge. I was the person that was running the sales floor without running it as a makeup artist. Like I was like, oh, so and so needs help. Can you go grab this? We need to finish this. And it's just very natural to me to be
yeah,
that way. So all the little small management positions in the store, I would just take and groom and create things and whatnot. So I kept moving up. I would move up like third key and then assistant manager. And then I was managing a small counter. Then I managed a big counter. And ultimately it just kept progressing. Like it was like a 6-month progression. I would always look for the next role, the next position, the next opportunity. And then I really got to a point where I wanted to go back to Miami. Miami and Tampa were the place I used to switch a lot. And there was a position in the travel retail sector in Estee Lauder in MAC Cosmetics, and they were expanding the Caribbean. And I was like, oh, this is made for me. You know, I'm originally from Trinidad. I was like, they're just waiting for me to call them. So I called and I interviewed for a makeup trainer position. So makeup trainers were more of the ones that were like the glamorous role. Like they taught you how to do the smoky eye, and they used to do facilitation and classes. And I interviewed for it. And she's actually a really good friend of mine now. And I was telling her about myself. And the whole interview, I guess I was so commercial and very business and sales oriented. And at the end, she's like, you should really go for the sales manager role. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I don't want to do management. I want to be a makeup trainer. And she's like, no, no, I think you should go for it. So I actually moved to Miami. I interviewed the same day I moved for what would be basically a sales coordinator for the Caribbean. And I remember interviewing, I hadn't slept. I had drove 4 hours. I barely was like ready and dressed. And they left me in the room for like 3-4 hours. And I remember thinking like, what just happened? Probably going to fall out. I'm starving. And they came back with the HR person and they sat me down and they were just like, we'd like to offer you the role. And I was like, what? I was just like, and what I now know happened was they basically were running around the office going, we're never going to get a girl like this ever again. She's Caribbean. She knows Mac. She's ready. She's passionate. And I got hired on the spot. And exactly a year later, my former manager, he was getting moved to Latin America. And we had worked like hand in hand, expanding the Caribbean. Yeah. And he got moved over and he basically told him, you can't move me unless you promote Josie or Joe. And they promoted me. So then I became the sales account manager for the Caribbean. I did that for 8 years. And it was so much of like learn as you go. I would sit in business meetings and not know anything they were talking about. And I would write all the words down and go home and Google it and research it. And I had such amazing mentors and sponsors. And Estee Lauder is a fantastic company at teaching you business, right? Like I had a P&L to manage. I didn't even know what P&L was. I had like, like it's a budget. You have a budget. Here's how you manage it.
Profit and loss for anyone listening. P&L, profit and loss.
Profit and loss, yes. I didn't know what it was either. And then after 8 years of doing that, I got to a place where I was like, what's next? What's next? And one of my now sponsors, he messaged me London, ? And I was like, London? I was like, what's in London? And there was a fantastic opportunity to be an area sales and operations manager in London, managing MAC Cosmetics as well as Jo Malone London in all the airports for the UK and Republic of Ireland. And that's what moved me over here. So it really was this like slow progression, but it was a lot of people also believing in me, especially before I believed in myself. And every time I tell this story, it still like baffles me that I have a moment where I step back and I was like, oh, how did that happen? But it did. And it was fantastic. And I made a shift to fashion a few years ago. That was another kind of like jumping out of the box and saying, okay, let me try something different. And it's been great. And all the skills I've learned from many different capacities and random bartending jobs and sales jobs and management jobs, I use every single day. Yeah. You know, nothing has become like useless. It's all so invaluable.
And I love that because I can definitely relate in the sense that even my roles in maitre d' after I graduated from university, just working in a restaurant, a rather notorious and colourful restaurant in Brixton.
Oh.
It taught me a lot. It taught me
of course.
Like my there's interpersonal skills, being able to deal with drunk and hungry people. I think if you can deal with drunk and hungry people,
you can do anything. There's nothing there's no customer complaint. I worked at bars. I'm like, come at me if you want to. I can take it. Like nothing scares me. I get it. It's true.
And it's so important to say because I think people will discount certain experiences that they've had along the career journey because it doesn't look maybe as glamorous as what they're currently doing potentially or what their peers are doing and so forth. But I saw a headline of an article last week and it talked about the new career progression style having
career lattice as opposed to a career ladder.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, me too, right? So
Yeah.
there's sort of horizontal, diagonal, parallel
Yeah.
moves that you can make across
Yeah.
different industry, across different functions to really bolster your entire career. And as you said, nothing's
Absolutely.
wasted.
And I've heard the squiggly line career, right?
Okay.
Like it's not like a straight line. You can go in all different directions. But it's really about like what is this developing in me? What am I taking from this? What are the experiences I'm taking from this? And like I said, no matter what the role is, it is invaluable.
Absolutely. And I think people often think that their job is their career. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no. It's a chapter in the story. Your career
it
is
is.
its own book.
Yeah.
Its
I
own-
treated my first management roles with Mac like university. I had stopped going to university and I was like, all right, this is my university. I'm going to immerse myself. I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to challenge myself. But you just have to really be intentional about the role and be the best at it you can be, not think of it as like I'm clocking in, clocking out.
And it's a big, big part of what I say when I tell people to fireproof their career from burnout. Take ownership of your career.
Yeah,
You have to be entrepreneurial.
exactly.
That is your business. Your brand, your professional, personal brand
A
is
hundred
your
percent.
business.
No, and I when I think about my time, especially in the Caribbean, when I started, we had 7 stores. When I left, we had 24. I expanded about 11 markets, but I used to take it serious like it was my business, my name was on it. And I had a different level of commitment and investment in it. And it was good because I take that in everything else I do now, even if it is my content creation or my relationship or whatever it is, I take a level of ownership and investment in it.
And it's so incredibly important. And I think one of the things you were saying was about having sponsors who believed in you before you believed in yourself. But it's
Yeah.
interesting hearing you talk because what resonates, and I now know why I really want to have this conversation with you. What resonates is the fact that there's a tenacity about you. So it wasn't even about self-belief. There's a tenacity that
Mm,
you have. So oftentimes in the world of burnout, people talk about resilience, and I say
mm.
resilience doesn't prevent burnout. It's a short-term strategy,
Yeah.
not a long-term solution. It's great for the interim to tide you over, but
Yeah.
for long-term success, for longevity, you need to be tenacious as anything, and you have literally done that. And so, even though we're going to talk about sponsors in a moment, but I just want to highlight the fact that you really did just take ownership of your
Thank
entire
you.
at every turn. And so many people need to hear this. We keep waiting on something to happen or
Yeah.
hoping the opportunity will come as opposed to creating the opportunity that we want, which is so
Yeah.
possible.
No, it is. It is. It is definitely. And I think, you know, I will be honest, it didn't come from a good place at first. I think a lot of it came from I need to prove a point.
Yeah.
I coming from a Caribbean family and not having the degree and not having the accolades. I wanted to prove to them like I don't need that. This is what I'm doing. You will be proud of me whether
Yeah.
you want to or not. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way. And I remember when I got to certain levels, a lot of the managers I directly managed, a lot of the teams that saw me in this role were women of color, were Black women. And I knew they were rooting for me. And I felt this fire to be like, I have to do well. I have to prove, I have to make them proud. And though that's a good start, I don't think that should be your main driver.
Yeah. It's not
Because at
sustainable.
the end of the day, it is not of my capacity nor responsibility to do that. And I think June 2020, like all of us have had that. Where were you in June 2020? What moment did you have? I shifted the responsibility of creating that diversity, creating that representation off of me. I
Yeah.
was like, this is not my job. I've done it for a long time. At that point, like 12, 13 years, I've waved the flag. I've been your diversity face on everything, whatever. I'm done.
Yeah.
Hire more Black people. Like I really took a step
Right.
back and I said, I'm feeling such a level of pressure showing up every day, being this person, because it's just me, you know? And that was a beautiful moment to just release it. And my tenacity now comes from a different place. I want to create an amazing future for my family.
Yeah.
So now I'm selfish now. It's not about, opening doors for others and, I'm done. I'm done doing that. Now it's like I want to open doors for my future children and my family, and you know, so it's shifted. So it started in a certain place, and I recognize why, what is this like feeling, and that's what created the burnout, and
Yeah.
that's what created the stress and the lack of work life balance. Was my intentions weren't in the right place, you know.
It's a difference between fulfillment and validation.
Yes, 100%.
It is. There's a difference between fulfillment and validation. If you're constantly seeking external validation, you will burn out because it's
Yeah.
not intrinsic. But when you're
No.
seeking fulfillment aligned with your purpose,
Yeah.
you've constantly got a North Star. You've constantly
No,
got a North
it's true.
Star. You know where
It's
to
true. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate. My family are Jamaican, so I am British
Okay.
Caribbean. And when I was waitressing, my uncles, bear in mind, my mom was in a coma at this point, so I was waitressing
Yeah.
just to distract myself from
Oh
life.
my gosh,
My,
bless.
my uncles went, "When are you going to put that good degree to some use?" And I went, "Oh," because waitressing wasn't making the cut anymore. And then
No.
I remember speaking to family friend, also Jamaican, say, "Yeah,
Mhm.
considering being an air hostess, because Joe, between you and I and everyone listening, I just want to escape life." So I was like,
Yeah, of
"Oh,
course.
if I be an air hostess, I can just, just keep
Hop on a
traveling.
flight, go.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and I enjoy people." And yeah, I was told no, that was just waitressing in the sky. Like, when are you going to put your degree to some use? I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
So me, and it came from a place of wanting to try and improve and feeling like I hadn't quite made the cut yet, especially from
Yeah.
the old Cambridge. So in my head,
Yeah.
there was an expectation somewhat of me going to Cambridge as well, but I burnt out probably from like my first year of A levels, so like when I was 16, because up until then I'd only been doing extracurricular activities that were academic. So I didn't know if I could be a dancer or not. I didn't know if I like. And the thing is, I even loved makeup as well. I was offered a job at Mac, but I was studying in Wales, and the job was in London.
Okay.
It's not feasible. Wasn't in the country.
Yeah.
But I never had the opportunity to explore that side. So I was
Right.
constantly seeking external validation, trying to
Mhm.
create a life that aligned with what would look good in other people's eyes. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I burnt out. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's a difference between fulfillment and validation entirely.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about our generation is our parents' generation, that was the blueprint. You know,
Yeah.
my mother has 2 masters and a PhD, all scholarship.
Wow.
She, in her eyes, she's like, what are you doing? Like, this is the blueprint. I've set it up, execute. And I think for a long time, it wasn't so much she didn't believe in me, she just didn't understand it, you know?
Yeah.
And she couldn't wrap her head around it. She's like, this is what we've been taught. And, you know, it's generation after generation after generation. It's really breaking that mold and giving permission to say, no, we're going to do different things and explore different ways. And we've come so far in our relationship where she's very proud of what I do. And she's my number one fan. But over a long time, she just didn't understand it. And I had to really have grace with her and be like, okay, just trust me. I kind of know what I'm doing, but just trust me and give me in. And now I have younger nephews that are in their 20s, and they're in this space that I was, and I see her approach so different, where it's like, all right,
It's funny when your parents become grandparents, you just recognize them.
You're like,
Who are you?
Who is this? She's like, you don't need to go right to school. You can kind of work it. I was like, who is this? But you know what? If that's what I had to do to like give them the experience, that it doesn't have to be this way. But I take a step back and think, okay, you moved, in my mother's case, you moved to a country, you didn't know the culture, you brought me, you want to give me a better life, you made your sacrifices. Like, of course this is what you want for me, you know? And I'm gonna really be so self-aware with my own future children of like, okay, what am I almost projecting on them because of my trauma and experiences and my blueprint of what, you know, good looks like. So yeah, it's just so interesting to hear. This is such a common story, you know, and we have, and understanding what are the roots to it, of where it comes from.
Absolutely, because I don't think my dad, you said, where were you June 2020? So June 2020, I was getting ready to be 27 years old. It was a year out from the investment industry since I medically retired, aka I left before they could ask me to. And I had just become the corporate hippie. I had just discovered that I'm obsessed with burnout and educating people about burnout so they can take back their lives. And my dad also took early retirement in 2020. And then my younger sister also had left her job as
Wow.
well. And so my dad's just looking at us going, what are you guys doing? Because he took early retirement from a job he was in for 30 plus years.
Of course. He's like, you haven't even put the time in yet.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I think what really helped is so my sister and I, we live with our dad in a family home, so he saw firsthand that we were working and we were working hard.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie to you, I think what solidified it was I won an award at the beginning of the year for Young Business Person of the Year.
Oh, fantastic.
And I think that helped him
Yeah.
realize, but also it helped. I don't know if it helped me realize, actually. I definitely spiraled into imposter syndrome thereafter, but that's a whole other story. But I think him seeing, and I think that's the type of external validation that can be helpful, the recognition as opposed to validation. So I think sometimes you conflate the validation with the recognition. There's one point of having fulfillment, doing what, you're naturally called towards, as opposed to being dragged kicking and screaming towards something,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And then what's healthy is having external recognition. And I think there's a difference there that people.
No, of course. Yeah, they want to believe in you and they want to believe in the cause and your purpose, but it's giving them a little bit more knowledge of understanding.
Yeah.
What are you doing and what this is look like externally as well.
Grace, as you said, it's the grace, because it's such a different culture. So my parents were born in the UK. Their grandparents came early in the Windrush in the 1950s. So for them, it was, well, actually, our parents couldn't get in the door. We got in the door. We're going to stay in and not rock the boat. Whereas being second generation British millennials, like, actually, I'm all right with rocking the boat, I'm okay with speaking up for what's right and wrong. And now in the era that I'm in, testing new things.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It's about giving grace, because there are the different cultural aspects to it, but it doesn't mean that we don't go after.
No. Of course. No, I agree completely.
Circling back, we mentioned sponsorship earlier, and I did want to come back to that, because I want to know, what did that look like for you in your career? What did that look like? What's the difference between sponsorship, potentially mentorship, and who's been the biggest sponsor? Maybe someone individually, or even just a demographic. Who's been really supportive?
I have a very distinct one, and to this day I'm still in touch with him, and he shares my story and my successes like another long lost daughter. But when I started working with Estee Lauder in travel retail, I had a director that is just intellectually and commercially a genius. Like, the way he looks at business, the way he dissects it, like, it's just phenomenal. And he really believed and trusted me in the Caribbean to be like, this is what the Caribbean needs. And he's like, all right, I'll book you an appointment with the head offices of MAC and you propose it. And I was like, whoa, I just wanted some lipstick shades. I was like, this is a lot. But he would believe in me to that extent. He would send me to propose things and conferences and leadership trainings and facilitation trainings. And it was absolutely fantastic. And he would massively be an advocate for me. And I know what happened with the Caribbean specifically is I became the face of the Caribbean, and they couldn't see me in any other role. They couldn't see me managing any other market, any other brand. And I would apply for other roles. So I'm like, come on, I could do more. And they'd be like, no, she's good in the Caribbean. So I had a trip booked to Cuba, and he messaged me and said, I'd really love if you'd help me out in Scotland. But you know what? He has always had faith in me and has always come through for me. So I'd never question him.
Okay.
So his name is Rick. So I'm like, if Rick wants me in Cuba, I got to go to Cuba. Scotland. No Cuba. I got to go to Scotland. So I told my friend, like, listen, we'll do Cuba another time. So I extended a work trip I already had in London, and I spent another week in Scotland, and I was doing all this stuff in the store because they hadn't had a sales manager in a few months. And I remember being like, what was the point of this? But all right, cool. I got to go to Scotland. And I was leaving. He's like, send me a recap of your visit. I really want to know what are the opportunities you see in it. How do you spend your time? So I sent this recap. And after, immediately is when the London position came. He wanted to prove to them, you do need this girl in your region. And this is what she could do.
He's
And he was so smart about it. I didn't even know. I was like, that was my interview apparently. And I didn't even know. But he wanted to prove to that business, like, listen, she's the person you need. She's going to bring what you need. No, she can look at something other than the Caribbean. And I'm so grateful for that, because others, it's one thing to advocate for you, and it's one thing to give you an opportunity to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't him saying hire her because it's me. It was him saying, let me prove to you.
He's
And
right.
only he had the resources to do that, And what's so interesting is I think sometimes, and I know I've done this historically, you want your sponsor, you want your mentor to look like you, sound like you, and have your experience. But what that does is just amplify your experience, right?
Yeah.
He will tell me what's being said in rooms because he is a cisgender passing hetero white man, right?
Yeah.
And he will be like, this is what they're going to say. This is what they're really seeing in the business. This is how you really manage this experience. And he's giving me completely different insight than I would have had.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, yes, you can have those mentors that look and sound and feel like you, but it's also good to get the ones that don't. And I think as I've shared more of my experience with him, he is a massive advocate and ally. But on the flip side, he has taught me so much that's been so invaluable. Like to this day, I could say, hey, can you help me out with this reference or the statement? Or I'm thinking about doing this course. What do you think? And he'll give me his honest opinion and support on that. And that to me is invaluable. So with a sponsor, you want somebody to truly know you. You want somebody that will be painfully honest with you. They're not just going to tell you what you want to hear. He's told me like that role's not for you. That's too advanced. That's too junior.
Yeah.
And I've appreciated that feedback. Or this is what you really need to do to get into that role. Are you just applying because you're not happy? Those honest conversations. And I think I would love to be that for somebody one day as well. But he has taught me what true sponsorship looks like through and through, for sure.
I think that's so incredibly important because, as you said, sometimes we'll just gravitate towards those who look like us. But it's about what's happening in the rooms that we can't enter into or that we've not yet been invited into, because that's where the real insight is. And so when I work with corporates, I'm always saying, look, if you want me to do work around race, for example, or any protected characteristic, then I'm happy to do so, but I'm working with your allies. Because it's easier for someone to put out a fire in someone else's house when their own house is on fire. So actually,
Exactly.
let's first fireproof your allies so they have the capacity to look beyond themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
allies are the most pivotal and progressive part of the organizational culture shift.
Right.
Through things like sponsorship. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Rick. Thank you. Thank you.
Would love that.
Jo. We really appreciate it, especially having it over here in the UK. I'm really grateful I've been able to hear her story.
Yes.
So that's really important. And another thing you mentioned was selfishness. I've yet to start my family, but I know that I'm working in the way I do because when it is that time, I want to be time rich. I want to be financially comfortable, but time rich to really be present and show up for my family. And you have to be selfish and borderline a little delusional to make this seemingly impossible attainable in any area of your life. So I think it's really important that we get comfortable with the word selfish because you can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
And if you truly show up, if you truly want to give, then you need to be selfish. And I say selfish not in terms of being self-centered, but centered in self. You understand what your purpose and vision is.
Yeah.
And once you reach that, you can help other people. So thank you for speaking so candidly about the fact that actually I'm going to be selfish and actually I can be successful in my corporate career and still honor my motherhood. And I want to say wifeship. I don't know if that's a thing.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Partnership, wifeship, all of that. I think, it's so interesting. I was that diehard corporate, give them your all, this company, like I owe them my everything. And then COVID happened. And then layoffs happened. And I was like, oh, you could just get rid of people, and it opened up my eyes. And I was like, I'm here giving you 13, 14-hour days. I'm working weekends. I'm not seeing friends. I'm not seeing family. I'm traveling during holidays. And in the end, profitability, you'll cut me. And then it'll be like it never happened, and that's when I realized, like, whoa. I will give you a lot and I will meet my expectations and I'll probably overexceed them because that's who I am. But I'm not going to be that person anymore.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to make sacrifices to myself, really in the name of a company, a career, a job title, when that could all be taken away. so quickly. You know, if one thing we've seen in the past 5 years, the tech layoffs, everything going off, the redundancies, you know, the furloughs, all of that, it's just all that you did is wiped away. It
Absolutely.
means nothing. It means nothing. You know, I take my lunch breaks. I start at a certain time. I end at a certain time, and it makes me the best employee I could be. Right?
Absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong with that. You have full permission to do
But
that.
also, it's really important because oftentimes when people burn out, the first thing that goes is their sense of agency, autonomy, and they feel like they're no longer in control of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst you're working, whether you're a corporate professional or an entrepreneur, if you can manage your calendar, for example, taking your lunch break, and you know, you might get some pushback. I know I got some pushback from a senior colleague, but I took it and made it a magazine article instead, but it's fine. But what's really important is to take control of your calendar, to be able to manage your day is the best way to retain your personal power in the working space. Because as you say,
absolutely,
a hit of a button, an email can come through and they can say sorry, goodbye.
Yeah.
Maybe not a sorry, maybe not even a sorry.
Yeah. If my favorite phrase, my entire team hear me say constantly, and it's probably like better, my friend. If everything's important, nothing is important.
Absolutely.
If everything's urgent, nothing's urgent. So let's just all prioritize, take a breath. If every day you have to not eat your lunch because something came up, that means everything is on fire, and that's not productive as well. I always have to think about how old I am. About 7-8 years ago, I was actually confirmed and diagnosed with ADHD. And it was so interesting because there were so many things in my life that really showed those behaviors.
Yeah.
But there were so many things I naturally did to address them. And one thing was my calendar. People laugh at my calendar. I literally have get dressed. I have leave the house. I have, because if not, I will find myself in something and not move and not, get my day going. So I have to over analyze my calendar and my time management. I give time and allowances to be late, for the train to be late, for me to forget something, have to run back upstairs and get my phone. I give time for that. That's how meticulous I am about my calendar. And when I see people having challenges, like you said, with keeping themselves together, they come to work and everything keeps falling apart. The first thing I look at is, let's look at your time management. Time management is so important, from prioritizing to blocking out really efficiently the amount of time you need. I think that's been the biggest work with my husband, because he thinks he could do everything in 20 minutes. I don't know what 20 minutes he has in his watch. He can shave his head, make a shake, take a shower, go to the gym, and get dressed in 20 minutes. Everything is, I just need 20 minutes. No, you don't.
Incredible 20 minutes.
And I take my phone out and I'm calculating, like, well, this will take 10 and this will take 15. So all together, you need an hour to do what you need to do. But yeah, I think sometimes people just don't really take time to like invest in that. Like, give yourself time to be late. Give yourself time. I don't like to rush. I don't like to run. If they say 5 minutes to the station, I give myself 10, and it makes such a difference.
Absolutely.
Like, that living in anxiety, it's just not.
Being on time makes me anxious, Jo. Why be on time when I could be early?
I know.
I don't get it.
I know. And I have to, like, he laughs at me because he's like, not everyone's like you. Because even when I try to be late, because I'm like, oh, they're going to be late to dinner, I don't want to be there too early. I can't. I'm in the house and I'm like, whew, I need to leave. What if the train's late? I just got to go.
I'd rather be in the vicinity so that I can have the option to stroll over whenever than be late. It's better now, but it used to make me incredibly anxious. So I still keep the habit of being punctual, being early. Yeah. But no, I'm the same way. And for example, as I said, I live in my family home. So my family know that there's no need to contact me before 8 a.m. It has to be an emergency for contacting me before 8 a.m. I don't have work meetings till 10 a.m. because nothing's that urgent. You should speak before 10 a.m.
And no one's brain really is like working.
I'm not here. We're not. I am not. I know myself. I am not useful to anyone else until I've had at least 5 hours in the morning.
Understood. Yeah. Good. Setting those boundaries, it's not just for you, it's for everyone else as well.
I'm a pleasant person. I'm always a pleasant person, but you'll get more from me. My brain will function more during 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., if it's not fun, if it's not relaxing, or if it's not, someone in my inner circle, I'm not interested.
No. And you know what? I think definitely in my 30s, I got to a place where I'm like, it's okay to be like, no, I don't like that. Like that doesn't bring me joy. You know, you would give sacrifices and allowances because everyone else wants to do it and whatever. And then I got to a point I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm good. And you're much happier.
Yeah, I mean, I've just recently entered my 30s, and I love it here.
Yeah.
I've like been introduced to myself as 30. I'm like, hi, I'm 30. Forget my name. I'm 30
Please
because
let
the
just
sense
no.
of self
Yeah.
and bliss that I have right now,
Yeah.
having learned myself through my 20s,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So
No,
I hear
it's great.
you entirely.
It's great here. I'm looking like I'm now closer to 40 than 30. And I'm like looking forward to that. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it gets better, you know? So it's
So
good.
ready.
It's good.
I'm so ready to enjoy. Like I know every single decade from here on out is just going to be better than the last, and I'm so grateful. So I hear that entirely. But Jo, we know that success is not always, if ever, a linear journey. So I'm curious, and I think I may know one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to London, but what's been pivotal times in your life or career that's helped to shape where you're at now, where at the time it may have looked like an obstacle or a setback or something, but you've taken shape that and made it what you wanted?
I think I've had a few in terms of all the shifts I've had in my career have come from like, "Oh, what am I doing? Where am I? Feeling stagnant?" But definitely, I had a plan when I came here. I was like in a global mobility role. I was going to come here, show my stuff for 3 years, end up in Asia. Like, you know, it was just, I had a plan. And obviously, COVID happened. And I just sat in a flat for like months by myself, scared to go back to the US, didn't really know what I was going to do here. Because of the visa I had, they didn't think they could put me on furlough. So everyone else was on furlough. So, like, I felt lonely from a personal standpoint. I felt lonely from a business standpoint. Like, nobody was working. And I really had a moment. I was like, why am I here? Like, what did, you know, I really thought I made the right decision moving to London. And just like time after time, it was like, what are you doing here? Like, this was not the right move. You were happy in a sunny place in the Caribbean and you decided to come here. And I think I just had to keep having faith. Like, okay, there is an ending to this. There is a silver lining. And throughout the whole entire experience, I had never sat still that long because in my traveling position prior, I was on the road every week.
Yeah.
I was doing 100,000 miles like in a year. That's how much I was traveling.
That sounds
And
incredible and exhausting at the same time.
oh yeah, first 3-4 years, I was like hot girl every island. And then by year 8, I was like, I don't want to get on a plane anymore. Like, this is scary. And then I'm sitting in a flat and there's no club for me to go to. There's no party. There's no island for me to hop on. There's no plane. And I just had to sit in myself and everything I guess I've been running away from for like 10-15 years. And everything just started unraveling. Like the nails fell off, the lashes fell off, the hair. And I was like, who am I? Like I watched my hair for the first time in my life, my natural hair, like the relaxer, all that was gone. And I came like face to face with like me, like a person I had never really met or experienced before.
Yeah.
And I look at like 2019 February pictures of me and then like deep in COVID. And I was like, ooh, it was rough. Like trying to get acrylic nails off during COVID. And I just remember like all the like layers of the onion peeled off. And I got to meet me like for the first time and have a moment.
Yeah.
And it was a pivotal shift of like, if I want to do things from an aesthetic, from a beauty, I want to do it because I feel comfortable doing it, not because it's a necessity. Like I remember not leaving the house without my hair looking a certain way or my nails getting done or my lashes done or this or that. And I just don't feel that anymore. Like, you know, and that was pivotal. I think from a career standpoint, I realized, like I said earlier, all this can be removed and erased in a minute, you know, and then from a relationship standpoint, the people that kept checking in on me and were in my lives weren't the people I was going out with every weekend or the ones I used to be a good time with. They're the ones that genuinely cared. And I got this beautiful core group of fantastic people in my life and friends. So I think it was a massive shift. you know, in terms of like what was important to me, who I looked at in the mirror, and who I accepted myself as. And it created the perfect person to meet somebody and develop a relationship with. Like I joke with my husband all the time, because you know the story. I met him after this. And
Yeah.
I like, you don't know my Amy Josie. Like, you don't know. Like, I was like, I don't think you'd been okay with her. You know, and he's like, oh, but yeah, I blossomed into a person. You know, it was a very, that was like the most pivotal moment for me, for sure.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. This resonates with me because I got my locks. These are my lockdown locks, I call them. So I got my locks
Shut
in
up. They're
2020.
beautiful.
Thank you, girl. And they honestly have grown with me. They've matured with me. And I went
Wow.
through what people call the awkward stage of your locks, where it's not the most aesthetically pleasing. But I really, as you said, you get to know yourself. And I got my locks because everything was shut during
It was
the
great.
pandemic.
Yeah.
And the stress of trying to get my hair done, I was over it. I was like, I'm ready for my locks. So I
Yeah.
definitely hear that. But also that sort of getting to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was very much therapy. I went to therapy to learn how to navigate this newfound peace I had created after,
Yeah. Yeah.
dealing with the loss of my mum, being diagnosed with MS, and then going, look, I've actually rehauled my life. I've fireproofed my career. I've created this burnout-free lifestyle. How do I adjust to peace? So my thing with my getting to know myself was, who am I at my
Mm,
core? What is it that I value? What is it that I aspire to have? And which
yeah.
is why I'm really happy to have this conversation with you, because it's so refreshing. You're the second
Mhm.
person in a corporate space I've spoken to this year who very much speaks openly and happily about their marriage and the family life. It's not seen as this constant tug of war to and fro. It's actually, no, how do I create that sense of work-life satisfaction? So I'm
Yeah.
satisfied in my corporate life and
Yeah.
satisfied in my personal life. Because as we know, as we saw during the pandemic, when work is stripped away, who are you? Who are you left with? And are
Yeah.
you comfortable and proud of that person you're left with? It's so
I think
important.
that's massive. I was the Mac girl that traveled for work. Like, I remember meeting people and figuring out when I would put that in the conversation. Like, what is that? And now I work for FARFETCH. It's a great career. I enjoy what I do, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and it is completely different. And I think that's when I evolved with doing more content creation and storytelling and, you know, expanding my network and meeting different people and doing, you know, things like this. It's not me as this employee of this company. It's me, like, I'm my own brand, and I
That's
and I
it.
and I cherish it and I invest myself in it. But yeah, it's so different. It was me for a long time, a very, very long time.
I hear that entirely. And I think you're right. Whether you intentionally curate one or not, everyone has a brand, both
For
personally and
sure.
professionally. And I think it's so much better to tell people who you are than allow them to assume who you are. So,
Yeah.
both corporate professionals and entrepreneurs who are listening, please be really intentional about learning and discovering who you are and then creating a brand that aligns with it so that you can actually achieve
Mhm.
sustainable success without the burnout. That's at the crux of a lot of the work that I do with people.
That's fantastic.
Jo, you
Yes.
are about to blossom and move into a whole new chapter of your life.
Yes.
Actually, before we go there, because I really do want to talk about this, but before we go there, I'm curious. We both spoke about the fact that the pandemic was our catalyst in terms of discovering who we are.
Mhm.
In terms of the people that you've managed, that you've mentored, that you've met over the years, what advice would you give them to help discover who they are without having a global lockdown on their side?
Um, I think I think the biggest thing is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, getting comfortable with not having all the answers when you want them, getting comfortable with your plan is not the plan that's working. I think everybody goes in intense, and this is what they want to accomplish, and this is what they already know, and this is what they already have, and this is what the outcome looks like. And it doesn't work out that way. Like, there's my advice to anyone is like, practice agility
Yeah.
and get uncomfortable with uncertainty. Like a lot of the people that work for me, and it's always wanting an answer. Well, when? how, and I was like, I don't know. And that's, yay, that's great. So let's try a couple different things, and I think it's something really difficult for people to let go of control. I have my 90-day plan, my 3-year plan. This is what I want to do. By 30, I should meet my husband. By 35, I should have my first child. Like, everyone has these plans. And you know what? Sometimes life's like, yeah, that's cool, but this is what's really going to happen, And I don't think people are comfortable with that. Like, I don't think people like, I can never travel to Hong Kong by myself, or I can never do this and not know the outcome. Why? What is going to happen to you? We have to get out of our way. Like, I think I say this to people often. The only person in this conversation that's blocking what you need to do is you.
Absolutely.
It's not me. It's not society. It's not your bank account. It's you. Get out of your way. And I think that's a really big fear of people. And I was meeting with some girls at work the other day, and we're having lunch. And I was telling the girls to do a solo trip. And I was like, you need to go somewhere where you don't know the culture, you don't know the language, and you just figure it out. Yeah. And she's like, I could never. And I said, no. You will grow more in those 10 days than you have in 10 years.
Absolutely.
And I told her, I was like, I'd go to Japan and Hong Kong, wing it. Yeah. And just figure it out. And I would grow so much as a person, from empathy to discipline to understanding. So I definitely think my advice to anyone is get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not so much getting out of your comfort zone, but get comfortable with not having all the answers.
Yeah. Ultimately, I moved to France and Spain, not speaking either of the languages, when I moved out there. And it was an incredible experience. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about what I really enjoy from life. And I think what really helped that as well, in terms of getting uncomfortable with uncertainty, because I was like, I can't live in the grey areas. Okay, I can navigate grey, but I prefer black and white. And that's still true to an extent. I can navigate grey, but what really, I guess, forced me to get comfortable with the uncomfortable was living in a period of time where I didn't know what was going to happen day to day, particularly with mum's health, but then having my own health taken and not knowing if I'm going to wake up in the morning and be able to see or walk. You have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable real quick. And so I say that, look, life is going to give you lemons. That's a guarantee. Yeah. But you don't always have to make lemonade. Resilient people will make lemonade so they can fill an entire Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's cool. That's great for a period of time, because you only swim for so long, right? Yeah. Life is more like an ocean. So when life gives you a lemon, instead of automatically making lemonade, just ask yourself, what else can I make with this lemon? Yeah. Yeah. It's so versatile. And then is the lemon even worth the squeeze? Not everything that we come across, we have to pick up.
No, sometimes it's a lesson. It's a failure. It's a lesson. Like, oh, what was I supposed to learn from that? All right, moving on.
Okay. And literally take the L as a lesson, not a loss.
When people tell me all the time, especially, I'm super grateful for my relationship, and I have an incredible husband, but I've taken L's, okay? And when people see just the finished product, they're like, oh, I'm never going to meet anyone. Oh, I'm so bad at dating. No one. I was like, yeah, and that's okay. Like, I've had terrible dates, terrible relationships, all of that. And I've come out of it saying, all right, well, next.
Literally, because you know what you want.
What I don't want.
Yeah, exactly. How can you know what you want if you don't, to an extent, experience what you don't want?
But it's yes, all that. But it's this fear. It's this fear of like, I don't like this feeling, it got to a point where it was just comedic to me. Like, I would just call my girlfriends back home and be like, girl, let me tell you about this. Oh, like, and then I would just move on from it. And, if it was a bad job interview, or I presented and it was a mess, or I didn't know what I was doing, like, I take humor from it. I didn't die. No one lost a limb.
I feel like this is when you do truly learn who you are. You no longer internalize someone else's.
Yeah. It's that ego.
Idiosyncrasies for your own fault. Yeah, it's literally removing ego out of the way.
Yeah.
Because like Jo, offline, if I told you the date I went on last, then I'm like, whatever. No, we did here. Wish you all the best, and kept it pushing, because I'm like, no, that's not for me.
No, but now you know what's not for you.
Absolutely. But no, before we come to the end of our conversation, I'm really excited about your next chapter.
Yes.
So would you like to share for everyone who is listening what your next chapter is going to be looking like very soon?
Yes, I'm going to get the best promotion I've ever gotten in job, which is being a mother. So
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm going to have a baby girl named River,
Oh,
and I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. Very, 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 very excited. Um, because yeah, I feel like I'm ready to be selfless. You know,
yeah.
I've been selfish as like an individual for a long time. And then I got to be selfish with my husband and travel and enjoy life. And I'm ready to just really dedicate my time to this. You know, I've had a fulfilling life, and I'm just super excited to meet her and let her be her own individual self. I feel like I've confronted a lot of what I didn't get as a child and what I want for her. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about what she needs and, you know, what she's going to look like in terms of her life, her personality, what she wants to achieve. And, you know, I picked the best partner to have her with. And I realized, you know, I had a conversation with my mom when I was moving here, like, children might not be for me. I'm going to do a different path. I love my career. I need you to accept that. And she was just looking at me like, okay, girl. And
She's
she
like,
let her
right,
tell it.
all my grandbabies.
Mama was like, I'm gonna go ahead and pray about this, and then we'll come back to this. And now she's like, yep, like I said. So, what's so interesting is like I realized it's not that I didn't want a family. I had never met somebody I wanted a family with.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
so pivotal. That's so important.
yeah, yes, you know. So
Good
yeah, so
point.
super excited, and I think it's put everything in perspective. You know, I'm in like going into month 5, and the things that really would have like rattled me and consumed me and get me, I'm growing a human. I'm not worried about this Excel sheet. I'm not, you know, and it's put things completely in perspective for me. And I'm really just like, if I ever guarded my mental well-being before, today I'll get off a call quick and be like, not today. Nope.
Absolutely.
No one's going to feel this stress in my body. So I'm super excited for this like next journey and promotion. And there'll be mistakes, and I'm gonna learn and have fun while I'm doing it. But yeah, I'm very excited for this next chapter.
I'm excited for you. I think it's so beautiful to see, honestly,
Yeah.
people to see. I think people have an issue when we say, you know, or women want to have it all. No, we can, but we might not be able to have it all at the same time. But
Yeah.
we can definitely, definitely navigate and create the lives that we want. But as you said,
Mhm.
it really does come down to learning who you are, understanding who you are, and being tenacious about going after what you want. So,
No,
Jo,
agreed.
thank you so much. There's
Thank
a
you. I had so much fun. We just need to call each other. I could just
I'm
talk with
ready.
you. No, it's
I'm
been such
ready.
a pleasure. Your story is so inspiring as well. But thank you so much.
As is yours. Before we wrap it up, I do have one last question for you. I like to ask people what they're grateful for a couple of reasons. As I mentioned before, I believe in work-life satisfaction, creating satisfaction in your personal and your professional life tangentially. But I also really think that gratitude is powerful
Mhm.
because it can change your perception of something. And if you change your perception of something, you can change how you experience it. And if you can change how you experience it, you've ultimately changed your reality. And
Yeah,
what's better than changing your reality? So, what is
great.
something you're grateful for in your personal and your professional life?
In my professional life, I'm grateful for all the good, bad, and ugly experiences I've had. I remember talking to a therapist saying, I just want to have a good year at work. I just want it to be smooth. And she's like, but you're a leader and you're a mentor and you're an educator. And a lot of that content comes from the bad times.
Yeah,
And it's the difficult managers and the difficult employees and colleagues and coworkers and retailers and businesses I've learned the most from. It's not the good ones. It's
yeah,
it's the difficult ones, you know? So I'm grateful for every experience I've had that has shaped me today. Good, bad, ugly, the stuff that made my hair fall out, the stuff that made me happy, all that. So from a career standpoint, I'm grateful for all the experiences I had. From a personal standpoint, I'm really grateful for my travels. I think it's rare I meet somebody that I don't have some level of connection. Like if you say you're from Jamaica or your family's from Jamaica, I'm quick to say what part of Jamaica. I love Jamaica. I love St. Anne's, this and this. I go to Devon House. Like,
Ooh.
you see what I'm saying? And then the layers you pull back with people when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, I've been there and I love it. Like I met somebody from Colombia the other day and they're like, oh, have you been? I was like, yeah, I love Colombia. And I said, you start to see somebody differently. So I think from a personal standpoint, I'm really grateful for the life I've been able to accommodate, the travel I've had.
Yeah.
Because of the work I did, I was able to really have such incredible experiences personally outside of work, that taught me more about myself and taught me more about the world I live in. Because I don't know how people interact with people where you don't know more about the world, So
To me, how, like, even for me, it's languages. So whenever I
yeah,
meet someone, I'll literally ask them, how do I say thank you in their language?
yes,
And
I love that.
when I meet other people, met a carpet cleaner from Bulgaria the other day, and he would not smile or make eye contact. Like if I spoke to him, he
Oh
would
my
just
God,
like
I love
run.
that.
And then towards the end of his service, I said, oh, where are you from? He said, Bulgaria. I said, oh, how do I say thank you, Bulgarian? He said, Blagadaria. So I said, oh, okay. And every time he like moved out of my way
Yeah.
or just a smile, just be like, oh, Blagadaria. And the smile
Oh,
that cracked across his face,
yeah.
the laughter that erupted from him, he was a completely different person.
It's
For
so
me,
true. It's so
language-
true. No,
oh,
languages, experiences, food,
food.
like,
Oh my gosh, food. Yeah.
yeah. Like if you meet somebody like, oh, I love this dish from there, and they're
How
like,
did
how
you
do you know
know?
about that? Yeah, yeah. So I love that. So that's definitely things I'm grateful for.
Oh, Jo, thank you so much for this
Thank
conversation.
you.
I really appreciate it. So if anyone's listening and they're inspired and they want to learn more about the work you do, your career and lifestyle content, and just inspired and just want to stay in touch, what's the best way for them to do that, Jo?
On all my platforms, I'm Jo Wong. So who is Jo Wong on TikTok and Instagram? I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. So I'm Jo Wong, no E, JOWONG on LinkedIn. And yeah, please connect with me.
Thank you so much. And also, she's got a fabulous style as well. Fabulous
Oh, thank
style. So if
you.
you're looking for inspiration, corporate babes, or a high power dressing entrepreneurs, definitely check her stuff out.
Please do. Thank you so much.
Jo, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.